That was, in fact, the last stanza. Take your seat. Thank you very much. He's a member of the MOBA National Executive Committee, member of MOBA 1977. Tonight, he speaks to us on the history of Mfantsipim. Let's welcome Dr. John Manfo.
Mr. Headmaster, Mfantsipim, members of the National Executive Committee present, and 2025 sponsoring year group members, encompassing all the fives. I don't want to leave anybody out. Staff of Mfantsipim, students, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to read to you or present to you a brief history of the school. But before I do that, I get to the script, I'd like to make a few comments. I read the same script yesterday, and immediately I read it after that, one of the old boys accosted me and said, "This your script needs editing and polishing. So send me a copy." So I sent him a copy. Who am I to say that I wasn't going to do that? And he says, "You have to polish it and you read it to us." They were my seniors, so I couldn't say anything. "We have to polish this and you read it to us, and we know that it's good before it's presented again anywhere." But somehow, I'm going to read the old script now. I also like to make a few comments about the history of this school, things which has caught my attention. My seniors would know, the 75s are here, they will know this. And I don't know how many of you, as for the boys, I don't think any of you would know, even the younger old boys. How many of you know that these 4 blocks have got names? 1, 2, 3, 4. They have names. You know the names? Who knows the names? Who can help? Who knows the names of these blocks? What is the name of this one? What's the name of this block? That is the Lockhart block. Yeah? When we came to school, there were letters on them. Seniors, weren't they? So there was L on this one. This is the Freeman block. This one here was the Freeman block. There was F on it. This is the this is the Saba block, and that's the Balma block. And these letters are gone. So the students go through the schools and they don't know that these schools have, these blocks have names. Mfantsipim Headmaster, I think we should put them back and let them learn that these blocks have names. It was only when I was in Form 2, right, that they started adding this bit, this one here, and that one there. So these ones are new additions. I don't think these, well, probably it's up to us. The one here, there, and there. And then right in the middle here, there was a tree. There was a tree. There was a neem tree, a little neem tree right in the center of all these blocks here. And it was called the Lockhart tree. So we assumed that it was planted by Reverend Lockhart. That tree was there, right in the middle. Mfantsipim, I'm sure when you came to Form 1, it has been removed. No, it wasn't there. It had been removed. Because when we came to Form 1, the whole school fitted into the assembly hall. That's where we had our morning assemblies. That's where we had our church services. We all fitted into assembly hall. When at a certain point we couldn't fit into the assembly hall again, then we moved into the quadrangle. And when we were moving into the quadrangle, the Lockhart tree was removed. It was very sad, but it wasn't preserved. It was removed. It was right in the middle here. And it was Akwebadu's favorite spot. Those of you who know would know. The assistant headmaster at that time, when he comes and he stands under the Lockhart tree, every boy disappears into his classroom. So that's a little bit of history for you. But please, let's bring the names of these blocks back. This school that we call Mfantsipim, which is our school, is the first secondary school in the Gold Coast. There are some people who claim, or not some people, our sisters on the other side of town claim that their school is the first. Yes, but they started as a creche, as a primary school for little children. This is a secondary school. We're talking of secondary education. And for secondary education, this one is the very first by a long distance. It was established by the Methodist Missionary Mission and nationalist in response to the political climate and demand for higher education and dynamism of Reverend G.W. Grimmer, Reverend T.R. Pico, Reverend Thomas Birch Freeman, among others. In 1874, Reverend T.R. Pico, who was then the Methodist Church of the Gold Coast missionary, wrote to the Methodist Church in England stating that our mission is not well spoken of by the people in general or by sister missionary societies because we have not in the past paid sufficient attention to the education of our people. These movements, the agitations at that time, prompted the Methodist Church of the Gold Coast to decide during its synod of 1874 to establish a high school. As a result, on Monday, the 3rd of April, 1876, today is the 4th of April. So we are, 149 years and 1 day old. 1876, the Wesleyan High School was opened in Cape Coast with 17 students. 17 students started the school. And the Reverend James Pico, who was 18 years at that time, was the first headmaster of the school. So if you are 18 years, you're old enough to be a headmaster. And this young Reverend James Pico was the younger brother of the Reverend T.R. Pico, who was chairman of the Methodist Church of the Gold Coast at that time. Some of the founding members, some of them who were present on that first day were John Mensah Saba, George Grant, William Van Hine, William Finn Penny, who was later called Reverend Finn Assam, William Finn, Robert J. Hayfran, Benjamin Pinewood, Samuel C. Crankson, Brody Arthur, and John James Clement. These were names of indigenous people. I don't know how many of them you would recognize today as indigenous names, but these were among the first 10 students of the school. The school began as, the quiz is going to come next year, so I'm not going to ask you any questions. It began as the Wesleyan High School. Then it evolved into the high school and training institution. It was later called the Wesleyan Collegiate School and also later called the Richmond College. So Mfantsipim has had many, many names. It's gone through many incarnations before it became Mfantsipim. It was John Mensah Saba, one of the pioneering students. And somebody told me yesterday, one of the seniors who accosted me told me something about Mensah Saba, that he was in the school for only 2 years. And his father was a very rich man. So after that, the father took him after 2 years in this fledgling school to the UK, where he completed his education and promptly came back to establish the Mfantsipim that we know today. So that was John Mensah Saba. Somebody told me that yesterday. So Mensah Saba was one of the pioneering students and an accomplished lawyer who finally gave the name Mfantsipim. The school also had also relocated many times, moving from the Mission House, the former colonial school on Saltpond Road, Aqua's House, Kuse's House at the foot of the McCarthy Hill, government buildings near the Isolation Hospital, the Seaview House, Mount Hope, and finally settled here on this beautiful hill called Kwabotwe. So this was the final destination of the school. Between 1886 and 1900, the Wesleyan High School faced challenges such as inadequate accommodation, staff shortages, and despite being renamed the Wesleyan Collegiate School in 1891, the fortunes did not improve. The important lesson we have to note is that it's not the name that has anything to do with your fortunes. It's what you invest in it and what you do. So you may change your name, but that change of name wouldn't help. Mfantsipim started as the Wesleyan school of the Methodist Church, continued to face problems. So they decided that they would merge the two institutions. And the name Mfantsipim was adopted over the Wesleyan Collegiate School. So that is how we got our name, Mfantsipim. For Saba and a few others, Mfantsipim did not signify 1,000 fantis, as some people think it is. Instead, it focused on the future of the Gold Coast, meaning the soul of the people. The soul of the people. That is what it means. They believed that it was within the school that the souls of the people of the Gold Coast would mature. Mensa Saba also gave us our motto, Dwen Shakan, which literally translates think and look ahead, or better still, be forward thinking. In his book, Mfantsipim and the Making of Ghana, Professor Edibuahin stated that Mensa Saba explained that the motto Dwen Shakan was meant to inculcate thoughtfulness and foresight. The school crest. I wonder how many of you have looked at the school crest and tried to make sense out of it. It didn't make sense to me as a student. There were so many things in there I didn't understand at that time, and I'm sure so many of you sitting here do not understand. The school crest was designed by a man called J.B. Isumanjura. He was a mining engineer and a licensed surveyor, and he was also the brother-in-law of John Mensa Saba. Shaped like a shield and divided into 4 sectors, which is familiar to you, this crest features a stool, which you can see, 2 swords in one sector, a book in another, industrial implement in a third, and farming and fishing tools in the 4th. That one is clear. Enclosing all these sectors are 2 circles, bearing the names Apollonia, Ashanti, Mfanti, Wasa, Ikwapim, Accra, Sekendi, and Ogwa. That encompassed what was then the Gold Coast. So although the school was established here, there are things in the crest which said that the school is for the whole of the Gold Coast at that time. The crest is set against a background of red and black colors. The black stands for the African, and the red, the blood of the African. T.F.E. Jones, a friend of Saba, explained that the stool symbolized social, political, and domestic organization, encompassing authority, power, and government. The open book represented literally acquisition, and the tools symbolized industrial and technical training. J.B. Emisa Abedu, one of the pioneer students, explained that the stool symbolized authority, tribal organization of great antiquity, a people with ancient rights, national committee to defend at all costs. The book in the crest signified the accepted power which alone can pierce through the thick clouds of ignorance, encircling the nation to catch a glimpse of the transcendent light beyond. The industrial and agricultural implements that you see in the crest symbol development of natural resources of this country by manual labor, which in brief also involves training all for national progress and prosperity. Some notable headmasters of the school. I'd earlier said that the first headmaster was an 18-year-old young man called James Pico. Yesterday, I questioned his nationality. They tell us that the man was French, but they call him James. And I know that the James in French is Jacques, like Jacques Chirac that we know. That is James. So why was a Frenchman called James? Probably not. But we have to investigate that. It's up to you. The history. Alfred. Half English, half French. Well, we don't know. Maybe the mother was English and the father was French. We don't know. It happens. So we have to find out before we accept that Reverend James Pico was a Frenchman, because we are all Saba Pico boys. Ebusha Payne is Saba Pico. The vice president is Saba Pico. I am Saba Pico. Senior Bentinchel is Saba Pico. Don't worry, we won't count you. Over the years, notable headmasters have significantly shaped Mfantsipim through its vision and commitment and hard work. One of the notable figures was Reverend W.T. Balmer, who in 1907, and I can imagine it, from what I read, in 1905, the two schools were put together and called Mfantsipim, but they still struggled. In 1907, 2 years later, Reverend Balmer came to Ghana. Reverend Balmer was based in Sierra Leone, and he was an inspector of Methodist schools in the West African sub-region. So he came on an inspection tour in Ghana and found 8 students in the school. The names of those 8 students have been mentioned because they didn't have a teacher, and if you were good in English, you learned English and taught the rest. If you were good in math, you learned the math and you taught the rest. So they put a pipe on the ground and brought it to the monument. So when it was lighted, it was on permanently for days, for a very, very long time, till at a certain point they started to put gas cylinders there, and when the gas cylinder was finished, the lights went off. But those days it was on for a very, very long time when it was lighted. Reverend Ari Lockhart expanded on the achievements of his predecessors and tirelessly advocated for the colonial government to support secondary education. He initiated a 40,000-pound project in 1931. Ebusha Payne tells me that it will run into millions of pounds today. Those of you who do economics, just work back. 40,000 pounds 100 years ago. So that was what was invested in these buildings when these buildings were built in the 1930s. And that is what helped Reverend Lockhart to move the school to this compound. Lockhart's creation of Mfantsipim Committee, that is the school council that we have, became the blueprint for many schools in the country. He also introduced uniforms. The uniforms that we wear to school was introduced by Reverend Lockhart. Dr. F.L. Battels, who was the first African headmaster of the school from 1949 to 1961, belonged to the Lockhart era. So he was one of Reverend Lockhart's students. During the time, there was an improved official policy regarding secondary education in the country. He approached the urgent question of expansion and development with intelligence and foresight. The records are filled with old boys who have achieved, with achievements exemplifying values of discipline, courage, hard work, and above all, total dependence on God. These expectations were echoed by various headmasters on different occasions. Reverend Balmer aimed to raise the generation of men who will be bold enough to face the problems of their own continent practically and usefully. Reverend P.P. Dyer, who was headmaster from 1919 to 1925, hoped that the school would produce men who shall be the future leaders in character, thought, energy, initiative, and resourcefulness. And Reverend R.A. Lockhart, who was from 1925 to 1936, confidently stated, and I quote, that in a few years, the people of this country, that is the Gold Coast, will be amazed at the number of its influential students who owe allegiance to the school. Professor Dubois-Hen, in his book, Mfantsipim and the Making of Ghana, stated that Mfantsipim has exceeded all these high expectations of the founding fathers. Over the years, many old boys have held various positions and significant contribution to the development of Ghana and the world at large. Their achievements stand as a testament to the school of enduring legacy and commitment to excellence. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. before I continue with the script. Apart from being a student in this school for 7 years, those days we stayed here for 7 years, I was a teacher also here for 3 years. I taught in this school for 3 years, so I spent 10 years of my life on this hill, both as a student and as a teacher. I did my national service here and I continued, so I was here for 3 years before I left. When I was going to do national service, I was posted to the central region. So I came, went to the regional office to get an appointment letter. I didn't care where I would be posted. So they posted me to go and teach in Agri Memorial. Just as I got out of that office, coming out on my way to Agri, I met Mr. Dontry, who was then the headmaster. Then he greeted me and said, "Hey, now, Hashe." I said, "Oh, sir, I'm coming to do national service," and blah, 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 blah. "So where did they post you?" I said, "Oh, Agri." Do you know what he told me? Agri Sudan. I was Agri Sudan. "What did you do?" And I told him, "I need a biology teacher. Can you teach biology in addition to the agricultural science that you did?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Let's go." So he took me back into the office, told the national service people that, change his letter, I'm taking him to Mfantsipim. So he changed the letter, and almost instantly he put me back in the school bus and brought me here. Then he called the maintenance guy and told him that this gentleman is coming to teach here. Sir, one of the flats is available up there. So go and clean up one for him. When he comes, you go and stay there. So I went, national service guy, they gave me a flat of 2 bedrooms up there. That time we were normally new. And I tell you something, the second bedroom, I never entered it for a whole year because I didn't need it. But now, ask the teachers, they'll tell you, things have really changed. So I spent 3 years of my life here teaching, and it was one of the most, it was one of my best years. I tried to give back a little bit back to the school what I took. But I couldn't do it because all my efforts was nowhere near what my teachers gave me. Okay, back to John Mensah Saba. This man emerged as a political leader of the Aboriginals Rights Protection Society. So those of you who don't know the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, go and find out what it is. After reading this speech yesterday, Senior JC, now I'll mention his name, came to me and asked me whether I was a historian. I said, no, I was a science guy, I'm a scientist. He said, oh, I thought you were a historian. I said, no, I never did history after Form 3. So I'm just reading the script, it's not my writing. In his book, Professor Dubois highlights a period during the civilian regime of the Second Republic, like I said. During the Second Republic, the Prime Minister, Dr. K.A. Buzia, his 2 assistants, Mr. J. Kwesilamte and William Oforiatta, as well as the opposition leader, E.R.T. Majite, and the deputy opposition leader, B.K. Agama. It wasn't B.K., this was B.K., it's G.K., the man is G.K. Agama, who later became the governor of the Bank of Ghana. They were all old boys. So all the leadership of the government and all the leadership of the opposition were all old boys from here. In recent history, during the Third Republic, the Vice President, J.W.S. de Graaf Johnson, was an old boy. The first Vice President of the Fourth Republic, Kwankensa Naka, was also an old boy. KBA Misata, another Vice President, was an old boy. They've always reserved the Vice Presidency for us. I don't understand. Dr. Alex Grayson Saki was a minister in Nkrumah's, was an old boy, was a minister in Nkrumah's government, and he became the first black president of the UN General Assembly. And Musumuru Kofi Annan, keep it in your library. It will serve you good. Because I have my book, the Dubois book that I bought many years ago. I still have it somewhere in my library. So on that note, I'd like to say a very big thank you to all of you. Thank you, Headmaster. Thank you, Bishop Penyin. Thank you, SYG 2025. Thank you, students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manfo. We believe we have picked a lot of lessons And we will have more time to listen to these stories so that we can imbibe them and make more out of them. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you very much, Dr. Manfo. Now I want to hear 3 other old boys. Dr. Manfo is 77. And he's telling us that he was called by his senior. That is serious. Now we are going to listen to 3 people from 95. They will also share a bit of what they passed through here. They have about 3 to 5 minutes each just to touch on 1 or 2 things for us. Let's welcome Thomas Ogwa.
Thank you. Mr. Payne, Mr. Headmaster, 149 years. Yeah, man, you know, Afishapa. Good. For us, this is Afishapa. Doug talked about 10 years experience on Mfantsipim campus. For me, it's just 3 years. When he left, that was what I was born 77. Doc, you know, Nyamin Shrao. I think around February 1993, I got admission from a village school. So my first experience, you go to the classroom and the teacher comes, tell us the school you attended. Then, Association International, Tema Parent, Morning Star. Then it gets to me, whose school? I used to say, Winneba District. You didn't hear what I said. Okay, so I'll repeat it. Ayensuaku LAGSS. But it's a rural school. Nobody has heard about Ayensuaku. So you quickly had to add Winneba District just to give it a class a little. But I'll say it fast. So the teacher will say, pardon. Then there's a trouble. So that's how we started. Form 1 General Arts, we struggled, especially with maths. We had about 5 maths teachers in Form 1. Form 2, then we got a teacher. And that's the experience I want to share with students gathered here. Steve Darcy. Then he said, Thomas, after class, come back. After dining hall, come back, sit down, rework the maths that I've taught you. I had 4 in coming to Mfantsipim in maths. That was a bad grade. But from a village, I was the champion. For my village level, I topped. Even Bojasi area, I was the best. But that was a very bad grade so far as Mfantsipim was concerned. Then he said, come and sit down, rework the maths. That was Form 2, so I started. It was working. Then he left. Then Sudazi also came. Thomas, sit down and learn. You hold your ears. What I want to share with you is that it doesn't matter where you are coming from. Mfantsipim gives you the opportunity to make the best in life. I came with a grade 4, left with A as an art student in maths. It means that
From town, I saw a car parked in front of local Swizer. It was prep time, so I felt that everybody should be up here. So who could be looking for a student at the time? After these 3 speakers, I'll call 3 other people to also tell us extempo. I pulled by and I realized there was a lady sitting in the car. So I said, let me find out what the lady is doing in the car. Then a gentleman walked up to me. Here's somebody who left the school years ago and felt that he had missed